Hello and welcome to Small Seeds. If you are new to this channel, last year we had a little wild violet tea party with wild violet pink lemonade and a cake I made with wild violet icing. That didn't exactly turn out the way I'd hoped. So this year I had to try out making a wild violet cake icing again and decided to have our second tea party on Mother's Day. With last year's video, Prometheus had some good suggestions in a comment that really inspired me to try some new things out. So thank you, Prometheus, not only from stealing the fire from the gods and giving it to humanity, but also for helping me out a little bit with my wild violet cake icing. At first I tried powdering a small test batch of dried violets and added them into a small amount of store-bought icing. I couldn't manage to get them powdered enough though, and I had to add some water in since the color pigments in the wild violets are water soluble. And it started to separate a little and it came out like this. So yeah. Instead, I used the remainder of my dried violets to make a super concentrated water infusion, and then added this water infusion into a simple glaze frosting recipe in place of just plain water. And it really seemed like it was working. So I put that in the refrigerator overnight and started crafting my wild violet syrup, which I was going to use in the lemonade the next day. Wild violet syrup is very simple to make. However, the color pigments called anthocyanins within the violets are very unstable and sensitive to pH, so you have to keep that in mind when working with them. This is why it's best to use filtered or distilled water. Anyway, the recipe for the wild violet syrup is in the description if you are interested. So the next day, I was ready to finish the cake, my wild violet icing, make the lemonade, and prepare the salad. So let's start with the cake. It was a vanilla cake with cream cheese icing, so I planned to glaze over the existing icing with my wild violet glaze. But when I took it out, it kind of looked gray. I added a bit of my violet infusion that was sitting overnight to be made into syrup, and this did help me with the color a bit. And when I got it to the cake, it was looking pretty good. But then it faded again, and I was just thinking that it probably isn't worth the time and energy because the color is so subtle and not very stable, but we'll get back to that later. It was time to get the lemonade and salad ready. I finished my violet syrup, added in some water, and because I forgot to get distilled water and used our own water, which tends to be a bit on the alkali side, it came out green. But don't worry, it all worked out, and we still got a beautiful pink lemonade when I added the lemon juice in. I also wanted to make a salad for this little tea party lunch, and I decided to try out a friend's recipe from her new book, Everyday Herbs, Meditations from the Heart, Recipes from the Soil. Her recipe calls for herb-infused oil and herb-infused vinegar. But since I didn't have any prepared ahead of time, I decided to infuse some wild field garlic that we harvested from a garden bed while weeding it out. Kadia, who wrote this book, is a big advocate for working with herbs that you have on hand or in the kitchen, so I felt that it was suiting to still make her dressing recipe using what I had. So I made a salad with some spring mix, a few wild greens from when we did our weeding, walnuts, feta, some wild violets of course, and then I topped it off with this fabulous easy citrus dressing which I infused with the field garlic overnight. We ate the salad with some chicken and it really hit the spot. By the time the violet glaze set and hardened a bit, the color was actually noticeable again and it looked a lot better. I feel like it didn't turn out the way I expected once again, but it did end up looking pretty cool. Everyone really enjoyed it, and it looked a lot better than last year.
I think I'm going to be eating this kind of cake for weeks.
You like it?
Mm-hmm. Guys, do you like it?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Do you like
I
it,
think it's
Grandma?
awesome.
I love it.
What about you, Kathy?
Oh, it's my favorite.
I know that Mommy is the one that really loves it.
Mm-hmm. We'll have to get Great Grandma to try it too.
Oh, yeah.
Later that night, I was looking at the last few slices that were left, and I was able to really notice the color at this point. So if I do this again, I will remember to let the violet icing set before judging the amount of color. Anyway, thanks so much for watching my little violet icing experiment and wild violet tea party number 2. I hope everyone is doing well and enjoying the springtime. See you soon.